All right. Good day, champions. This is Noble Mike Jamison with another episode of Game Time. I'm super excited to have an opportunity to really share with you one of my favorite topics today. And the title is self-explanatory. It simply says, what is my financial freedom number? Okay. And this is a session where I want you to just jot down a few notes. It's not going to take long to explain the concept that I want to share with you on today, but it's titled, what is my financial freedom number? And in order to get to a point to where we can actually answer that question, I want to read to you the definition of financial freedom, okay? Because I think it's important for us to know the definition in order for us to make a decision on, not make a decision, but in order for us to understand what is it going to take for us to get there, okay? So here's a definition of financial freedom. Financial freedom is considered a status of having enough income or wealth sufficient to pay all your living expenses for the rest of your life without having to be employed or dependent on others. Very simple. Okay, let's repeat it. It's the status. All right, financial freedom is the status of having enough income or wealth sufficient to pay all your living expenses for the rest of your life without having to be employed or dependent on others. Now, if you just dissect that definition alone, there's a couple of key things that I want you to write down in your notepad. All right. The first thing I want you to write down is having enough income is the word income. So it's a status that's dependent upon the amount of income that you have. All right. So write in your notepad the word income or wealth. All right. Income / wealth. And then the next thing I want you to underline is the words living expenses, because it's having enough income or wealth sufficient enough to cover your living expenses. So the living expenses is obviously the target, okay, is the target. The third thing I want you to highlight or write down in your notes is for the rest of your life. Okay, for the rest of your life. That's important. All right. So it's not just, hey, I can pay my bills this month. Hey, I made enough money in my side hustle to pay my bills next month. Now let me go quit my job. Don't do that. Okay. Don't do that. Oh, I got a great bonus from my business. I can cover all my living expenses for the next 6 months. I can quit my job. Don't do that. Okay. So the key to that is income, living expenses, rest of your life. Okay. And then the last two things I want you to highlight is without having to be employed or dependent. Without having to be employed or dependent. All right. So those are 4 key things in that definition that are critical. You got to have enough income to cover your living expenses for the rest of your life without being employed or dependent. Very simple. Those key things: income, living expenses, rest of your life without being employed or dependent. That's what financial freedom is. So if you're going to dissect and put yourself on a task or chart or journey to financial freedom, then there's a couple of things you have to do as you start to go through those 4 things, right? Do you have income? Does it cover your living expenses for the rest of your life? And do you have to continue to work for it or not, right? Employed or dependent. Those things are critical, okay? Now, this is why I absolutely love the home-based business arena, because the first thing you got to talk about is the income to get to enough to cover your living expenses. So let's kind of work our way backwards. So we always talk about being employed. And sometimes I think it could be taken the wrong way, because people think that those folks that are self-employed or maybe have reached financial freedom look down on people that have jobs. And they don't, at least they shouldn't, right? Because I've always believed that having a job or a great job or a high paying job is a great place to start. It just may not be the best place to finish, right? It just may not be the best place to finish. It's great. So being employed is powerful, right? It's a great start for a lot of people, okay? Because that employment is typically, for the average person, 80% of the population, is how they initially generate their income, okay? A W-2 employee of some sort, okay? Now, what I want you to do in today's session is be interactive in terms of your participation with your notes, because at the end, I want you to be able to say, hey, look, here's my target. Here's what I want you to do. So the first thing I want you to write down is, what are your living expenses for the month? What does it take to run your household? Meaning, how much do you pay for mortgage or rent? Write that down. How much do you pay for groceries to feed you and your family? Write that down. How much do you pay for your automobile? The lease payment, the payment itself, and the insurance. Write that down. How much does it cost for your utilities, your power, your gas, and your water, and maybe even your trash, right? Write that down, okay? And so you want to basically get all of your living expenses down. This can't be a vague number. You got to get it down on what it takes to run your household, right? Your insurance policies that you have on yourself, which you should have, by the way, okay? A life insurance, medical insurance, all of those things you have, okay? Your entertainment, what do you spend on entertainment a month to enjoy life, right? Write that down, okay? Maybe you tithe to a organization, whether it's the mosque or the church or whatever it may be. Write that down. So now you have this number that you know it takes to run your household, which includes, you know, your long-term investment contribution. Write that down. You don't want to leave anything out. So when you get this number that it takes to run your household, okay, you have a solid idea on what type of income you need to surpass that. Because if you don't know what the living expenses number is on a monthly basis for your household, you don't know what you need to surpass in terms of income. Now, as you can imagine, the reason why most people struggle is because their living expenses are here, but their income is here. So there's a gap, right? There's typically a gap. Or even if their living expenses is here and their income is here, they may spend more than what they earn. So therefore, it looks like they're doing well, but they're not. They're not. Okay. So we want to identify that living expenses number on a monthly basis. And now we know what type of income we need to generate to pass that threshold. Okay, to pass that threshold. It's a solid number. For some people, it's maybe it's $3,000 US. Okay, for some people. Maybe it's $5,000 US. Maybe it's $10,000. I don't know. It's going to be a variable. But you got to know what it is for your home, for your household. Okay, so once you identify that, now you got to say, okay, I got this number. I know what it takes to run my household every single month. It's no mystery. I know how much income I generate right now, so I know what the delta is, which is the difference. Okay? So what I love about our industry, the home-based business industry, is that the income that you need to surpass your living expenses can be generated in several different ways. Now, most people start out generating it by working for it. Right? You're W-2, your traditional employee. It's no problem. Great place to start. Perhaps not the best place to finish. But because of the home-based business industry, you have an alternative. You have the ability to generate income on a passive basis. right? So it just says income that surpasses your living expenses. The income doesn't have to be income that you've actually worked for continuously. It could be passive income that you earn through investments or that you earn through marketing, building a marketing organization, right? Which I like to refer to as a social entrepreneur network. Either way, it's a way to generate passive income. Because remember, the end of the definition says for the rest of your life without you having to be employed or dependent. So if you're going to have this income coming in on a monthly basis that surpasses your living expenses to perpetuity, right, to the rest for the rest of your life, then you need to have it on a passive basis, continuous. Because if you don't think income on a passive basis or continuous, then the amount of wealth that you have to accumulate before you're free can be substantial. Here's what I mean. Let's say you're opposed to home-based businesses and you're opposed to network marketing. In your mind, this is a curse word, right? It goes against your paradigm. So that means that if your living expenses is $5,000 a month, you've calculated, you've written it down, you heard the assignment, and you wrote it down. Your living expenses is $5,000 a month. And let's just say you are 50 years old. Your living expenses is $5,000 a month, and you are 50 years old. Well, we know just statistically that the average male lives about 76 years. The average female lives about 84 years. So let's take me for an example. We'll use 75 as a good number to utilize, 75 years old. So if I'm 50 years old and the average male lives to be 75, that means I got 25 more years of life expectancy. 25 more years. Well, in 1 year, there's 12 months. In 1 year, there's 12 months. And it takes me $5,000 a month to cover my living expenses. So in 1 year, I need $5,000 12 times. So I just do 5,000 times 12. And for 1 year to cover all my living expenses, it's going to cost me $60,000. For 1 year to cover all my living expenses. That's my financial freedom number for a year, 60,000. But I'm expected to live another 25 years, at least based off the statistics. So I got to multiply the 60,000 times 25 now. So 60,000 times 25. So my financial freedom number is $1.5 million. So in order for me to have financial freedom today, if I was 50 years old, and my living expenses were $5,000, I need $1.5 million today to be financially free. Or I can embrace the home-based business arena. I can embrace network marketing, and I can create a passive income through building a marketing team, right? A social entrepreneurs network, or create some assets that generate income and have those surpass the $5,000 every single month, then my financial freedom could be in the next year, because all I need is $60,000 that's coming in on a passive basis. You see that? That's why we put so much emphasis on earning a six-figure income in a non-traditional way in network marketing or home-based business arena, because typically the average person's living expenses is not $8,333. It's not $8,333, which is basically what a six-figure income is when you break it down per month. So therefore, we're excited to celebrate people who are able to earn that type of income on a passive basis, because it ultimately does create the freedom, right? Because now you can say you don't have to be employed because you built the network and you have the assets, and it's continuous for the rest of your life. And it doesn't have to be in 25 years where you got 1.5 million, because you've done it in the next year because of this industry in this space. That's the power of what we do. That's the power of what we do. because you don't have to wait 20 years, 30 years, 40 years to create your freedom. Your freedom is a number. All you got to do is go out and attack it through this industry. And in the next 12 to 18 months, boom, you can have the passive income you need to cover your living expenses for the rest of your life without you having to work. That's what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? And so I'm excited because it's a simple lesson. It doesn't take much, but it does take focus. It does take focus. So I want to encourage you today to write down your financial freedom number, and let's start immediately on the path to creating the necessary assets and the necessary network to produce the income to cover the expenses. Do it immediately. There's no time like the present. So listen, this has been another episode of Game Time with Noble Mike Jamison. Thank you so much for chiming in. Take care and take charge.